Hey guys, Uber Theologian here. I'm Michael Patton. I've switched call signs. Don't forget, no longer the Camaro Theologian. Maybe one day I'll be the Camaro Theologian again. As a matter of fact, there's a Camaro right there. That's a nice one. Looks like a Z28 fin on the back or a spoiler. So that is really nice, super nice. But right now, I'm in a Chevrolet Cavalier, so I don't really think the Cavalier Theologian is cool. I am delivering food. So, and I'm not saying I'm doing it with Uber, but I am the Uber theologian, like really cool theologian. And so I thought it kind of fit well while I'm waiting to deliver food to do this again. Now, what I have is I have a comment that was made on my Patreon. And by the way, you can become a patron. You can see right there at the bottom of the screen. That will allow you to go to support the stream and become a patron. But Erik made a comment on the patron page, and if you're a patron, I'll try to get to you and answer these questions or get to the discussion that you want to have, if you put it up there. But this one was from Erik, and Erik really brought up a great point. We were talking last time on the Uber Theologian #1 about the destructiveness of lying, of not telling the truth, what it does to your character, how it makes you disappear, that you're no longer a person, and how the first of all things that we have to do as people, as representatives of God, as representatives of humanity and ourselves, is tell the truth. Otherwise, we're invisible. We are literally invisible because nobody knows who we are. Invisible to other people, to ourselves, we can still see, but then we fool ourselves. Now, the point was, Erik brought up this good point. He said, well, what about situations where lying was necessary, or not so much necessary? In the Bible, you have a couple places where lying is commended, with Rahab, whenever she hid the spies, in the book of Joshua. And then also in the book of Exodus, you have the Hebrew midwives who lied. Pharaoh said, go kill all the firstborn males of all the Hebrews. Remember that? They were trying to kill off the Hebrew children. God, I mean, Israel from the very beginning has been under persecution. But here's was Pharaoh's iteration of that, was to kill the firstborn males, and the Hebrew midwives who feared God did not kill the firstborn children of the Hebrews. And then when asked, why haven't you been killing the firstborn of the Hebrew ladies, and they say, well, they're rigorous, and they give birth too quickly, so we can't do it the way we're supposed to. So they lied, and they are committed. Rahab is mentioned in the book of Hebrews of the New Testament whenever it looks back upon everybody in the great hall of faith, and commended for her faith, which is represented by her lie that whenever she hid the spies. So it's the question always is, all right, you've said lying is wrong. I get it. I understand it. It makes sense. I agree with everything you're saying, Michael, but aren't there times when there is some greater good out there that makes lying not only permissible, but probably the best of all the options? As a matter of fact, if you don't lie, that would be the evil thing. Always another great illustration of this has to do with Corey Ten Boom's The Hiding Place. And whenever they during the World War II and the Nazi concentration camps, whenever they were gathering up all of the Jews, again, same situation. It's amazing that it's always this, but whenever they people would hide Jews. And in this case, there was The Hiding Place. Great book. You need to read it. I mean, I read it whenever I was very young. I need to read it again. I mean, it's a great book. My sister reads it all the time. I mean, many times. But they were hiding the Jews, and saying we don't know where any Jews are at. So wasn't that good at that time? Because whenever the SS soldiers would come in for the Nazis and say, hey, do you have any Jews here? Because we're going to take them to the concentration camps. And that were they supposed to say yes? You know, they're staying in our attic, or we are hiding them in our floorboards. Was that what they were supposed to say? So they are not lying. That's the question. And that's kind of the dilemma that we're dealing with here. And this always comes down to an issue of greater good theology. Are there times when there is a greater good that is accomplished whenever you do have to do an evil of some sort? So it's kind of a lesser evil, which is the lesser of two evils type thing. So this is something that ethicists, theologians, philosophers, I mean, throughout all the ages have dealt with. It's not just a Christian thing. It's something that we all have to think about. And there are really three different positions. There's the position that you have absolutism, kind of a moral absolute. No matter what, you always tell the truth. If you are hiding Jews in your floorboards and the SS soldiers come, you say, I'm hiding them on my floorboards. And there's a story, I don't know if it's true or apocryphal, where somebody did do that. Might be true, where they did do that. And the SS officers came in, said, do you have any Jews? And they said, yeah, they're hiding in my floorboards. And the SS officers laughed and left. And I heard that illustration during a man's argument for moral absolutism, saying, always tell the truth, God will protect you. I think Augustine held to this view. I think it was St. Augustine. I think Immanuel Kant did as well. St. Augustine being a Christian, Immanuel Kant not necessarily a Christian, but a philosopher. But they both dealt with this and held to this view. There are other views. Let's say go to the extreme on the other side. The extreme on the other side is basically saying, okay, you always tell the truth here. And on the other side, it's kind of like, well, with every situation, you got to weigh everything. And you've got to go for the greater good, whatever the greater good is in the situation. And this you might call pragmatism. And pragmatism, you just decide at the moment whatever you believe is the greatest good and choose that one. And then therefore don't commit the greater evil. So the lesser of evils. Every situation has evils involved, and you choose that. And then there's kind of a mid-range, middle of the road type position that's a less absolute. That there are situations like ironically, you have Karl Barth and you have Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who both held to this, and probably influenced by the times whenever people were hiding Jews in their floorboards, and said, yeah, there are times whenever this is the case. You don't measure it every time, but there are extreme circumstances where we should lie. And I think the moral absolutism and this position that I just said are the two main views within Christianity. I would say for sure that's the case. Pure pragmatism, pure just kind of deciding on the moment. No, you can't go there. We know you can't go there. Now, here's the question. Do we always tell the truth, even whenever it will produce something that is evil like this? People who argue for absolutism say, well, here's the deal with the Hebrew midwives, and here's the deal with Rahab. Yes, they were commended in a way, but they weren't commended directly because they lied. They were commended because of their faith and their trust in the Lord. And so this is what they happen to do, but the Lord would have protected them had they told the truth. And I mean, there's some virtue to that. There is some deep-seated faith you have to have whenever you're taking that position, and maybe that position is correct. I mean, it's easier because you have it's just a deep line. You never lie, no matter what. There's never any question. You don't have to get into a moral dilemma. You always tell the truth, even whenever there'll be some evil involved, no matter how bad that evil is. Now that's a hard one for me. I generally speaking do not hold to that, but I do understand it very much because it's so much easier than saying, yes, There are times, extreme circumstances where we should lie, like Rahab, like the midwives, like the hiding place. There are those times when we should lie, but then I'm like, okay, who determines? We don't really have any place to. Is it just all of us on an individual basis, kind of relative to the situation? How does that not get us to pure pragmatism? Just do whatever seems best in the end to you. So you cheat on your wife, and you need to tell her. You should tell her, but at the same time, you know what? She'll probably be really sad. Maybe she'll hurt herself. So the greater good is for me not to tell. Or maybe she'll just be really sad, and I don't want her to be really sad. Nobody wants her to be really sad. If she never knows, then she won't be really sad. I mean, every situation you could come up with something whenever there is not a deep line. I recognize the ambiguity within the scripture about this. I recognize how difficult it is. I recognize that it's not a theology that is cut and dry that you can lay out. I mean, God, history has recognized it with so many differing opinions and people bringing this up. I recognize as well that moral absolutism is the easiest, and I would like that to be the case. I really would. And I don't know what I would do in each one of these situations, but I do think there have been times whenever that's the direction I go is more relativistic. I say, well, there are certain situations because of Rahab, because I mean, I don't know what we would do without those illustrations in the Bible. I mean, I guess we're lucky they're there or unlucky they're there, because maybe if they weren't there, we wouldn't be having this debate. We'd just be saying, no matter what, always tell the truth. But they are there. And if they're there, is there not a reason? Is there not an underlying kind of implication? And you say, well, how does your hermeneutic show that that's what it teaches there? You know, there's so much difficult here. Here's what I would say. You tell the truth. And I mean, if you're not wrestling with it, it's just not even you're way off. You're way off. If you're not struggling with this, you're way off, because you may just say, I just do whatever is best in the situation, and I determine what's best in every situation. You're way off. You can't do that. You have to do everything you can to tell the truth, right? I mean, you got to have such a high morality about truthfulness. You got to have such a high morality about representing yourself correctly. And then once you have that, then I don't think there's going to be the types of situations where you cross that line too easily. It can't be easy to cross that line. It really can't. It cannot be easy to cross that line. As a matter of fact, I might say maybe there's just a few times in your life you've ever crossed that line. If you're crossing it every other day, then I'll tell you, it's got to be wrong. There's no way that can be right. And so I would say, number one, I respect people with moral absolutism. It's what I would like to do. But if I'm honest with you, that's not where I'm at. I do think there are times probably where you have to say there is a greater good. And at the very least, God will understand whenever you choose according to that greater good. And I could bring up a lot more circumstances. You could too. But I think the circumstances I brought up, especially with the Jews and the Holocaust, are very, very good. What do you do whenever you have Jews hiding under your floorboard? Do you tell them you do have them, or do you say, I'm lying? I don't think I don't think it's going to ruin your character that much either way, because you'll have your character established in so many other ways. But great question, Erik. I wish I had a better answer. I wish I had a more clear-cut answer, but it's difficult. It really is difficult. And it's good that you brought that up. And thank you for asking that question, or at least getting into this conversation. But guys, listen, once again, if you want to become a patron, that would really help me out. We need as many patrons as we can as we move toward a credo house, a theological coffee shop here in Oklahoma City. This this not only gives me support, but we're going to work towards that. It's great to see you guys each time. And once again, I do not represent Uber. And I'm not even saying I'm working. That's not what I'm saying. I'm delivering food for Uber, but I am the Uber theologian. So we'll see you next time. I don't know how to get off this.